Right, welcome back everyone to Author Story. I am your host, Alexander Lim, and this episode's featured book, which you can check out by clicking on the Amazon link in the video description below, is Truth Has a Different Shape. The author, Kari O'Driscoll, is a mother of two teenagers, loves to read books, and has been an author story before, speaking to us on her previous book, One Teenager at a Time. So, Kari, welcome back to Author Story. Thank you very much for being with us once again.
Thanks for having me, Alex. I'm excited.
Cool. Okay, so first off, what's been up with you in the 5 or 6 months since we last spoke?
um, let's see. Continuing to raise kids and just writing, and actually less writing and more trying to sell books
All
is
right.
really what's been happening. Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. All right. So, I know that your background, based on a previous interview, I know you have a background in healthcare, that you're advocating an alternate methodology for, adolescents so they can build their lives better. So I presume that you're looking after, because this book is about, one of the big points about this book is you're looking after your mother and the issues related to it. Uh, and so I'm assuming, given your background in healthcare, that looking after your mother on the surface would be nothing new for you. But that really isn't the case, is it?
It's really not. I think part of it is my she she was not a very traditional mother to
Mm-hmm.
me when I was a child. So, and that's part of what I talk about in the book is how, in a lot of ways, I was a mother to her and my younger sibling
Mm-hmm.
when I was a child, and so looking after her again as she got older and descended into early onset Alzheimer's
Right.
was sort of a deja vu moment, and also in not my finest moment in the beginning, it was pretty rage inducing. I was pretty angry and
Mm-hmm.
resentful about that.
Right.
Um, Fortunately, I as my journey continues, I really do find um, a way to be with her that is rooted in compassion and love,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I think was was not what I expected.
Mm.
Um, but it's very hard. It's if you haven't cared for an adult who really really needs you,
Mm-hmm.
especially your parent or someone who may have been in a position to care for you when you were younger,
Right.
that role reversal is really kind of shocking.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, they're not particularly excited about it. I think there's
Okay.
a lot of,
Okay.
they tend to feel resentful about it as well. A
Right.
lot of
Right.
people, there's a lot of shame or embarrassment about needing to be taken care of. But
Mm-hmm.
also, there's this feeling of um, paralysis. Like, what do I even do? How do I do this? How do I tell my mother what to do?
Right. Right.
So
Okay. All right. And you're still taking care of your mother right now, am I correct?
she is in an assisted living facility,
Okay.
so I'm pretty hands off at this point. She doesn't know who I am. She hasn't known who
Mm.
I am for about 4 years.
Okay.
Um, so she is well taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't have any day to day responsibility
Right.
taking care of her at this point.
Right. Okay. 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 And the other issue, one of the other issues in your book is about essentially about caretaking. Taking care of the others. So, first off, before anything else, can you, for the benefit of our listeners, can you give us a definition of what being a caretaker is all about? What caretaking is all about?
Sure. I think for me, the definition really evolved
Mm-hmm.
because I was thrown into it rather abruptly and unexpectedly as a child.
Mm-hmm.
All of my caretaking during my formative years was very frantic. It was very survival based. I describe it a little bit as whack a mole.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely like, um, how do we eat? It was all those really basic survival kinds of things. It had a lot more to do with tangible, everyday. What are we going to eat? How are we going to keep ourselves from getting in trouble? Kinds of things. Um,
Right.
then when I grew up and I became a mother, it was really hard to shed that sort of
Mm-hmm.
fear-based caretaking, that looking for danger at every turn kind of caretaking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I've come to realize over years and years of taking care of first my sister and then my daughters and then my mother and ultimately myself
Mm-hmm.
is that the most, for me, the most profound kind of caretaking is not that frantic, fear based kind of caretaking. It is much more about listening and meeting that person where they are.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really not that those survival things aren't absolutely necessary, but it's far more profound if I can be with that person as in that moment where they actually are and what their needs are, as opposed to me racing in and trying to head off
Mm.
disaster.
Right, right.
So, because I think what that does is it creates relationship between the caretaker and the person who's being taken care of. It creates a way where the person who's being taken care of has a voice
Mm-hmm.
in what's happening. Um, I think a lot of times we, as caretakers, feel this massive amount of responsibility to make sure that everything goes right all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, we what that does is we don't give the other people credit for maybe knowing what they might need or having some responsibility, especially in the case of children. You
Right,
know, we want our kids to be able to grow up and learn how to take care of themselves.
right.
But if we don't ever give them opportunities to do that, because we're constantly saying, no, I know best, let me handle this, let me handle this,
Mm-hmm.
then they're
Mm-hmm.
never going to learn that. So for me, caretaking is about a relationship
Mm-hmm.
between two people. It is about how can I help you um, in a way that's meaningful to you, and how can I meet you where you are. Maybe, you know, in the case of my mom, um, it wasn't being condescending and just saying, fine, I'm just going to do everything for you. It
Mm-hmm.
was really acknowledging her grief
Mm-hmm.
at the loss of independence, and maybe she didn't want to eat what I was making for her for lunch that day.
Right,
Maybe
right.
she would rather have something different. So it's much more about relationship, I think. I think a lot of times we descend into that sort of condescending, patronizing, you know, let me fix this for you kind of caretaking.
Right,
Um, and that doesn't create relationship, it doesn't create trust.
right, right. Okay. So, before anything else, I'd like to go into the I don't know how to call it, the circumstance, the surrounding circumstance behind the way you approached caretaking. I mean, like, um, what were the social expectations, the familial expectations that you believed were necessary in that, as you mentioned, the early part of your caretaking, the way you viewed caretaking earlier on?
Yeah, I mean, I think um, my circumstance was somewhat unique in that in the period of about 3 months when I was 8 years old,
Mm-hmm.
my family just basically fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
I, you know, I don't want to give away too much of it, but
Yeah.
I lost a brother
Mm-hmm.
under some pretty mysterious circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
My parents got divorced. My dad got remarried and moved a couple states away.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom really just checked out.
Mm-hmm.
She just was completely overwhelmed by depression, and I think she just couldn't. And so there was my older brother who was 11, myself who was 8 years old, and my younger sister who was 5. And it was basically like if I didn't step up and do it,
Mm-hmm.
nobody was going to do it. And my circumstances were such that in my 8-year-old child brain, I was absolutely certain that if I didn't keep everything as normal looking as possible from the outside,
Okay.
that the
Okay.
rest of us were going to get taken away, that my younger
Uh-huh.
sister would get taken away, that we would just basically be broken up and kind of on our own.
Right.
with no family.
Right.
And so for me, all of those expectations were internal. They
Mhm.
were absolutely driven by none of my school teachers can know what
Mhm.
my that I'm in charge, that I'm
Mhm.
the 8 year old, that I'm in charge of my home. I can't let any of the adults in my life know that.
Right.
I think I had these expectations of what a mother should look like and what a mother should do.
Mhm.
Um, and I not only tried my best to be that person, but I also resented the heck out of my mom for not
Mhm.
being able to do that.
Right.
And then when I grew up and started raising my own children, um, I still had sort of the vestiges of that expectation that, you know, 3 healthy, hot meals a day,
Mhm.
um, staying at home with my kids. Like I had this sort of rigid expectations of what a mother is supposed to look like. You're supposed to make sure that your child's brain is developing by playing all these great games with them all day long, and
Mhm.
you need to keep them stimulated constantly, and they need to have X number of hours of sleep, and they have to have play dates, and um, and I think part of, I think there's some interesting questions there. Number one, we absolutely do not have the same kinds of expectations of fathers
Mhm.
in our
Mhm.
society.
Right.
Um, and and number two, I think a lot of those expectations that we have of mothers are they're not sustainable. They're
Mhm.
really overwhelming, and
Mhm.
it's not it's a recipe for disaster.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. Right. So, so you did mention like, you had kids of your own after this kind of childhood, this I don't know how to call it, a fearful kind of frantic kind of childhood you say you had. So how did this work out? Like when you already had kids and they're growing up, and you're trying to be a mother to them. What was it for you?
um, it was very. First of all, I didn't think I wanted to have kids.
Okay.
When I left home at 17 to go to college, I was certain that I wasn't going to have kids because I had
Mhm.
been, I had 9 years of raising my younger sister under my belt.
Mhm.
And and it was many, many years later that I decided. I was 29 years old when
Mhm.
I had my first child.
Mhm.
Um, and I had thought that I had really successfully walled off all of those really scary, traumatic experiences that I'd had when I was a kid. And I was pretty certain that I could do things differently. I
Right.
wasn't prepared for that sort of um, emotional Pandora's box that
Mhm.
would be reopened when I
Mhm.
had my own children.
Right.
Um, it was terrifying.
Okay.
The voice that I kept hearing in my head over and over again was, "What makes you think you can do this? You screwed
Mhm.
this up the first
Mhm.
time. You
Right.
know,
Right.
you did not do well by your sister. What is wrong with you?
Right.
Who are you to think you can have children?" Um,
Right.
I ran away from that voice for a really long time until I broke, and then
Mhm.
I went into a pretty deep depression, and
Mhm.
it took a few years of really, really intense therapy and work, hard work to
Mhm.
come out of that and be a different mother to my children than I
Mhm.
had been to my sister.
Mhm. Right. Okay. And you did mention that things changed. As you say, you broke and then you went to depression. What was there any particular incident that made you realize this thing isn't working, or was it like an eventual accumulation, like you said, of the opening of the Pandora's box and things just piling on?
I think it was both. I mean, I think there definitely was this, there were those whispers of voices in my head every day
Mm-hmm.
reminding me that no matter that I was doing the same thing again, right? I was presenting to the outside world that I was competent and capable, um, but I never felt it in my
Right.
bones. I
Right.
never believed it. So I think there was sort of that constant everyday overwhelm. Um, but then there was just one day where I thought I I don't know how much more I can fight this. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
exhausting to
Mm-hmm.
continue to fight this. And honestly, my biggest fear was recreating the past. You know, my biggest fear was becoming my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And because when my mom descended into her depression, she was physically there,
Mm-hmm.
but she couldn't take care of us. And
Right.
that was the last thing I wanted to do to my children.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so took a leap of faith and I confided in a couple of people. My first, I was afraid that if I told anybody how I was really feeling, that um, that they would take my kids away from me,
Right. Right.
and that was a horrifying feeling, especially after having lost my brother when I was
Right.
a kid.
Right.
Um, but I was suicidal, and I knew that either I was going to take my kids away from me, or I was
Mm-hmm.
going to have to help. I was going to have to get help. And so
Right.
I took a leap of faith and I told a couple people, and thank goodness
Mm-hmm.
they helped me find help.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So first off, just for the benefit of our listeners, we hear some meowing in the background. That's my cat. She's calling for attention. All right. There we go. All right. Just want to get that out of the way. Okay. Yeah. You stay where you be, girl. Okay. So that's the way it was. So what are and you're approaching caretaking from a different context now. What does caretaking look like for you now?
Well, so like I said, my mom is in assisted living. My daughters are older. They're both, my youngest daughter is a senior in high school, and my older daughter is a sophomore in college, and she actually lives across the country from me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I, my caretaking is very much about that relationship that I
Mm-hmm.
talked about. It
Right.
is, I've built this foundation of relationship with my daughters where they know that I'm absolutely here,
Mm-hmm.
and they get to help define what that relationship looks like so they
Right.
can, you know, my daughter who's in college can text me and say, "Can we talk on the phone because I
Mm-hmm.
really, I have this question that, I'm really worried about this thing and I
Right.
need
Right.
some advice." So she
Right.
can define that for herself.
Mm-hmm.
They can say, I just want to vent, or,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, but then when she came home, she was home for a month during the holidays, about mid December to mid January,
Mm-hmm.
and they revel in the sort of nostalgia
Mm-hmm.
of my caretaking as making their favorite dishes
Mm-hmm.
and letting them sleep in
Mm-hmm.
and doing all those kind of mother things. I I have a guest room that's sort of a revolving door for kids who can't live at home for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason for
Right.
a little while. So I host other teenagers, if they're in trouble, and or if they just need a space to be to cool off. So I do that kind of
Mm-hmm.
caretaking, and I absolutely love it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I work a lot in my community as well. I volunteer at my local food bank, and I'm on the board of an organization that provides sustainable employment for adults living with mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
So I consider all of those things caretaking as well. I'm part of a community of women who we really pitch in for each other. So there's one woman whose husband has a terminal progressive muscular disease,
Mm-hmm.
and she knows she can text me and say, "I just can't today. I just
Right.
can't,"
Right.
and I'll head over with dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got you. Um, so it's very much this fluid, evolving kind of showing up for people in the way that they need to have me show up for
Mm-hmm.
them, kind of caregiving.
Right.
Um, and less day to day, I'm doing your laundry and
Okay.
things like that.
All right. Okay. Okay. Cool. So, just for the benefit, just so we can see the difference. I mean, who was Kari O'Driscoll like before? Before she broke down, before she had this realization, before she changed. Who was she like before compared to who she is now?
Oh, she's very different. I think if I had taken, the like Myers-Briggs personality test or
Mm-hmm.
things before and then taken it again,
Right.
it would be very, very different.
Mm.
I was a perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
I was a control freak. I was absolutely type A personality, teacher's pet, getting straight A's,
Mm-hmm.
always rushing in to answer the question first and, help that person that needed, even if they didn't need help. Like if I thought somebody was in trouble, I would race in and fix it. Um, I was, people would say I think I was probably hyper competent. I
Mm-hmm.
was also hyper vigilant.
Right. Right.
um, didn't sleep a lot, ground my teeth. I mean, from the outside, I think I looked like I really had it all together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, all the T's were crossed and all the I's were dotted, always, always, always.
Right.
My house was always clean. I was at I was chaperoning every um, field trip for the kids and, volunteering for absolutely everything and doing consulting work on the side. And
Mm-hmm.
um, I was obsessed.
Mm-hmm.
And 90% of my decisions were made out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
I would say um, I am so much more grounded. I am so much more calm.
Mm-hmm.
I am so much more likely to rest
Mm-hmm.
myself. Um, I'm way more likely now to tell you I don't know the answer,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but if you need help exploring and trying to figure out what the answer is, let's do it together. My house is definitely not always clean.
Okay. Okay.
um,
Okay.
I only take on, consulting jobs or volunteer positions or other kinds of roles that I really feel called to do
Mm-hmm.
now.
Right.
I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I could care less what anybody else thinks of me, honestly, except the people in my life that I love and that I know love me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't have any sort of desire to be going, going, going all the time.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I'm a completely different person. I have really become somebody who has I can trust that the universe is sort of holding me and that things are going to be okay and
Mm-hmm.
that I don't have to do everything all the time to make sure that things are going right.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I'm a very different person than I was before.
All right. Great. Great. Cool. Okay, now, so Carrie, a little bit on the book. I mean, this is a memoir, and I'm sure you'll agree there are lots of memoirs out there, on people ranging from the very publicly well known to those who, you might look at the book and wonder, who is this person? So, what is it about your book that would want to make someone think of picking it up and reading it?
Um, I mean, I think a couple things. One of the things that's very unique about it is this sort of mysterious aspect to it. I have one older biological brother, and then my younger sister was adopted at the end of the Vietnam War,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had a younger brother who was adopted from the Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
um, and he's the one that was taken away
Mm-hmm.
under mysterious circumstances when I was a kid.
Right.
I still don't know where he is. I've never been able to find him,
Mm-hmm.
and I still don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's that is um, definitely unique and different.
Mm-hmm.
I think another part of it is there are a lot of people, especially in the 1970s when I was growing up, 1970s and early 1980s,
Mm-hmm.
you know, who were kids like me, who were children of divorce. There was a whole group of kids called latchkey kids. We wore our house key on a piece of yarn around our neck and let ourselves in, and we were super independent.
Right.
I think that came with a lot of baggage,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
so I think that that's something that people can relate to. I think there are more of us
Mm-hmm.
than we know
Right.
who
Right.
really were responsible for raising themselves.
Right.
Um, And then also, I think that as we have this aging baby boomer population, there are a great deal of us who are faced with raising children and simultaneously caring for aging adults.
Hmm. Okay.
And navigating that without completely losing yourself
Mm-hmm.
and exhausting yourself
Right. Right.
is really, really tricky. I am the co-administrator of a Facebook group called Sandwich Generation,
Mm-hmm.
just for people that are specifically in that, find themselves in that situation.
Right.
And we've got thousands and thousands of people in that group from across the globe who are all trying to navigate, you know, where do I spend my time? Where do I spend my energy? I've got kids at home and
Right.
I've got these parents or aunts and uncles or, grandparents that need a significant amount of care.
Mm-hmm.
And and how do I do that without completely destroying myself?
Right. Right.
Um, this absolutely is a memoir. It's not a how-to,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's not a manual, but
Right.
at the same time, I think that there's information in there that feels universal
Mm-hmm.
for a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, and I think also is a way. It's a different perspective. It's a different way to look at um, what caretaking really means and what kind of caretaking is absolutely
Right.
necessary, and what stuff are we doing just to because we feel like we should be doing it.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. All right. Cool. I got that. Okay. So, Carrie, let's say you came across a caretaker. Most likely a woman. Uh, could be a man, but most likely a woman, who is trying to juggle, raising kids and looking after an elderly parent. This person getting overwhelmed, and you had only enough time to tell that person one thing about how to handle the situation. What would be that one thing you would tell that person?
I think one thing I would ask them to do is to maybe write down sort of what their to-do list is. What is the list of things that they feel like they quote unquote should be doing
Okay.
for all of these different
Mm-hmm.
people in any given
Mm-hmm.
day, and then see where they can either outsource or eliminate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I think a lot of times we put so much pressure on ourselves that we're the only person. I'm the only person that can do all of
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we make assumptions about all of this needs to be done.
Right. Right.
Um, and and sometimes it's as sometimes we can eliminate things off of our list that will give us room to breathe,
Mm-hmm.
and we hadn't even really thought about it.
Right.
Um, but we get so frantic and so mired in that, like, all of these things have to be done,
Right.
you
Right.
know. And then whatever you eliminate, whatever extra time you get
Mm-hmm.
back, or whatever extra energy you get back, you use that for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's sitting reading a book, whether it's taking a walk in the park,
Right.
something where you're taking care of
Mm-hmm.
yourself as well and identifying what your own needs are.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. Cool. So great words of advice right there. So okay then. In closing then, the book is Truth Has a Different Shape. The author is our guest, Kari O'Driscoll, and you can find her book on Amazon as well as on other book websites. Carrie, this is a very interesting topic. Shame we have to close so soon. So, thank you very much for being an author story, and thank you very much for providing, a very raw on occasion and intimate look at your life and how it worked out.
Thank you. I appreciate the time. I always love talking to you,
Okay,
Alex.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so everyone, check out Truth Has a Different Shape along with all the other great books we've featured on our channel. So I'll see you guys next time on Author Story, where we speak to another author about their awesome book.